Mr. What Presents. It's this annual moment of family rejoicing with the Mime Troupe in the studio, Michael Gene Sullivan and Brian Rivera.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having us.
You are in the midst of a kick-ass season with Treasure Island.
Treasure Island and pirates and sword fighting.
And a lot of action. I got to see the show this past weekend at McLaren Park. The Amp in action, the Jerry Garcia Amphitheater, and I was extremely pleased with the environment. Perfect for your style of theater.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful green environment, and a show that I found exciting, fun theme that touches on a lot of very San Francisco problems, centered about the locale this time of Treasure Island.
Conveniently enough for the title, yeah.
First, for listeners who are not familiar with the San Francisco Mime Troupe, I want to emphasize once again that it is not a silent pantomime. It is a very active, very musical, very lively political theater. Michael, would you describe the style and why
we're called
you are
Mime.
tagged with that name, which misleads so many people, even though once you know what it is, you can't miss it.
Well, like mime is the exaggeration of everyday life in story and song. That's actually the name, what the word means. That's what it means. So silent mime is a type of mime that some people do. The Mime Troupe was named back in the 50s, the late 50s, when people pretty much knew what mime, the speaking, the singing, the exaggerated style of mime was. So times have changed, and now we're kind of this outlier where the company would still the right name, and so it is difficult. And periodically we'll say, "Oh, we should change the name," but we've got a Tony Award and Obie Awards, and we're in history books, so it makes it difficult. And so it's just something we think of ourselves as kind of an open secret. You know, it's like the people who know the Mime Troupe know us, and it's up to them to kind of infect their friends with that information.
And that brings me to another question. The audience, before we dive into the show itself, do you notice significant changes in the audience as San Francisco itself is morphing tremendously? Are you finding that, for instance, they're more generous, they're less generous, there's maybe less of them, but maybe more commitment from them? Are you finding that there's pros and cons to our current predicament in the arts in San Francisco?
Well, definitely the audiences have shrunken as more and more of the working class has been pushed out of the city, and the people that have come in don't necessarily have that same kind of history relationship, you know, knowing like San Francisco Shakespeare Festival, San Francisco Mime Troupe, you know, different organizations that have a long history here that the newcomers have to still learn about. But at the same time, the audiences that we have are becoming more and more generous because they understand the importance of the company. And so, and as funding has shifted around, there are fewer foundations. The National Endowment for the Arts doesn't give as much money as it used to, and some years we're out of the cycle with that. But our audience has kind of stepped up. But we still need to make sure, because the point of the Mime Troupe isn't just for us to make enough money to survive.
Right.
It's getting the word out with different political issues. And so we want to make sure that we're not always giving that information to the same group of people, even though they don't know it either. But we always need just bigger crowds, mainly for our real mission statement, which is to speak these political truths to the widest possible audience.
And I'm glad you're confirming that even though you guys have to balance with the bleeding population, you are finding that people are understanding the importance of the art form that you represent.
Hawkins, I'd like you to meet someone. He's a land use consultant. Comes highly recommended. New York, Nairobi, Dubai.
San Jose.
This is LJ. Take good care of her, and I'll be waiting for your report.
LJ Silver. And Hawkins, is it?
Yes, sir. Jill Hawkins, Mr. Silver.
Oh, why so formal? Call me LJ. Right this way.
Brian, you're an actor in this show and a couple of shows past. Tell us a little bit more about your background and what other companies you play with, whether it relates or not, or whether it is distinctly different with the Mime Troupe and therefore a special treat for you to join them.
Oh, well, I mean, I've been fortunate to play with a lot of different theater companies in the Bay Area through the years. I moved here from Sacramento and went to SF State back in '98. And then, so I've had the pleasure of working like with Word for Theater, Berkeley Rep, ACT in the recent years. Camposanto, one of my home theaters, and then got to move around to different cities, and eventually, last several years, I've been involved in New York with the Broadway revival of The King and I, as well as the eventual Broadway tour.
From The King and I to L.J. Silver,
Yeah.
the instigator of a lot of mayhem in this play. Who's this guy?
Well, he's something I've never heard of before, which is a land use consultant, who's a person who helps developers kind of spot out territory in a certain sense. He's a man with a kind of past, but a zest for life, and kind of, I guess, well, the least you could say is he has a kind of pragmatic viewpoint of the world, and then, has realized at some point that coming from a working class background, that in order for him to make it and get what he can, he has to, resort to kind of leading developers towards areas where that could, hurt the working man and woman and lower classes, and he's okay with that.
If I get kicked out, my life falls apart. How will I survive? Will I survive?
It's that kind of choice, my life or my art. How will I survive? How will I survive? We need a place to really live and not just be alive. How will we survive? And will we survive?
We are providing much needed affordable housing!
My building has plenty of affordable units and is centrally located.
By denying my building permit, you, Miss Literacy, are discriminating against a minority.
Minority?
People who want to live in castles! Picturing the 100,000 square foot tower on Diamond Heights with revolving turrets, a helipad, and a robot-filled moat!
But I'm building residential units.
Plus, a residential unit! 1 bedroom, 2 kitchens, 14 bathrooms!
14 bathrooms?
Well, statistically speaking, game-developing millionaire cosplaying hermits with irritable bowels are an underserved minority.
The parallel between developers and pirates, of course, is one of the main tropes of this play, and it's when the developers were sword fighting with their city plans. You wrote the play, co-wrote the play. The inspiration, the process with the mime troupe, would you take us through how we got to this point this summer with Treasure Island?
Well, one of the things that kind of confuses people sometimes, because first of all, the Mime Troupe doesn't have an artistic director. Most theater companies have an artistic director. We have an artistic collective. But then once we say, well, the company is collectively run, it's the workers running things, then people think that we all do everything. Everybody's writing, everybody's directing, which isn't the case. And I'm the resident playwright, so frequently, I'm the one who comes to the company with an idea, and I pitch the idea to the company and say, well, let's try this year. And then it's my responsibility to write the show. This year, we had a couple of other collective members, Marie Cartier and Ellen Callis, who also wanted to write on the show. None of them had written. Ellen hadn't written on a summer show in some years, and Marie, this was her first time. So each one of them contributed one scene to the show. And it's my job to kind of to write the rest of the show and to fit it all together. And then we have a lyricist, Daniel Savio, who wrote the lyrics, and then Michael Bello, who is the composer for the show, who writes music for all the songs and all of the music that goes in between the scenes and stuff like that. And so the steps through, like I was telling Brian that originally I pitched to the company, I said, I want to do something about climate change this year. And everyone's like, yes, let's do climate change. But then a friend of the company, Steve Zeltzer from Laborfest, just mentioned in passing to Valina Brown, another collective member, you guys should look at Treasure Island. It's an interesting story. And then he left, and that was it. They just passed at a party. And so Valina told me, since we're married, not me and Steve, but me and Valina, and so I looked it up, and as I was studying it, I was finding that it not only did it deal with climate change, but it dealt with homelessness and developers and the development of San Francisco and environmental crimes and the history of the Navy and racism and all of these different issues that all came together in this one story. And so then as I started writing it and thinking about it and trying to structure it, scene by scene, writing a scenario, which I then present to the collective, and they go, oh, yeah, okay. And then I come back and I write it. And I kept thinking, well, what will I call it? What's going to be the title and what's going to be the theme? And I kept coming back to Treasure Island. And I couldn't get away from it. Finally, I was like, we're going to have to just call it Treasure Island. And then I read the novel again and then went off and watched the different film versions. And everyone in the collective went off and read it. And they all were like, yes, that's what you should use. And so the trick of like having L.J. Silver, a land developer / pirate, or Jill Hawkins, all of these different characters or my character, Benny Gunn, that are mirrored in some way by the characters that are in the novel. And the situation is mirrored, but the overall idea is that, as with any Mime Troupe show, we suck people in with the entertainment and the songs and the comedy. And in the case of this show, the resonance that they feel with, I kind of remember Treasure Island, or I saw the Muppet version, or something, or I saw Treasure Planet. So they kind of know what's going to happen, but then we can surprise them by bringing in all of these other political tropes and political ideas and information that they don't have. And then just when they get settled with that, a sword fight happens, So it's really trying to keep the audience always entertained and surprised while giving them all this information that they may not know. And so that's the goal every year. And with this show, because I was working from a very particular novel and with a certain type of adaptation in mind, this was actually an easier show to write for me than many of the Mime Troupe shows I've written.
It felt natural and flowing, very smooth, a good vintage.
Oh, good.
So congratulations on that. And you obviously have developed over 30 years a very personal style with the Mime Troupe. The plays are available online. Are you finding that people worldwide are sort of picking up on it, asking to write maybe adaptations for their own cities? How is the Mime Troupe spawning at the moment?
Well, interestingly, when we opened this show, immediately someone came up to me, two people from New Jersey who are environmental activists, young guys, and they said, "Can you bring this show to New Jersey?" And we're thinking, well, it's Treasure Island, San Francisco. And he's like, no, the issues are exactly the same here. And they're, I think, from Trenton. And then I said, well, it would be great, but we'd have to put together a tour. Maybe we'd play Flint, Michigan. And he said, we know people in Flint. And so there is a chance that this show might go other places. And it also, coincidentally, just today, someone from Australia contacted us and said, well, can we get any of your scripts? Because many of the issues you deal with in your over 60 years, this is the 60th year of the Mime Troupe, over the 60 years, a lot of those issues will be the same ones we're dealing with in Australia, and we could just change some of the names, and I'm sure it would work out fine. And it just so happened, I was like, oh, by the way, we have like a 17-play anthology, really like the last 17 shows, for free on the iTunes iBook thing. You go to the iTunes store and look up books. The plays of the San Francisco Mime Troupe from 2000 to 2016, and the whole scripts are there with explanations of what the shows are about and photographs and reviews and all that stuff, really so that not just so that people can take them and maybe adapt them or perform them, but also to make sure that the next generation of activist artists, there are teachers and colleges and professors who want to be able to tell their students, this is a way you can use art to affect people and affect change, but they don't have enough examples. In the United States, many of the examples are plays from the 30s or 40s. Right? And so wanting to be able to go, oh, and here's something contemporary. Here's an issue. Here's the Iraq War. Here's how the Mime Troupe dealt with that. Here's, this last election. Here's a privatization that's happening. Here's how the San Francisco Mime Troupe used comedy and music and clowning and all of these different things to discuss and kind of take apart each one of these issues and deal with it.
Right, and schools are starting to pick up on that. It's not an established stream yet. It takes the individual teacher to take the initiative.
Yeah, we're going through to make sure that I've got to go back when I have the time, which I never do, to go back, and I want to keep every year. I'm hoping to add more scripts to it, and like I said, and it's a free download. Anyone can download them. We wanted to make sure that the price of the anthology was close to the price of the shows, free. Though we can't put it on Amazon, because on Amazon you cannot give things away for free.
I see.
Just works out. Because I was in negotiation with them, and they were just like, no, you have to have a price point, because they make some little bit of money off of that. And if you just say free, it doesn't count.
And there's always a lot of information on the sfmt.org website. Are those there as well? Or that's
Oh yeah. If you can check different things, and there's a section that says, "Do you want the scripts?" And then we have other things that are for sale, like posters and T-shirts and all of that, and a history of the company, and video, and bios of all of us, so you can see what else we've done.
And also blogs and links relevant to this year's theme.
Yeah.
I saw that you had some San Francisco housing sites listed.
Green Action Network,
right.
different organizations that we work with. That's the big part that I forgot to mention of the research. People will sometimes ask us, say, "Oh, well, the Mind Troop show, it's so smooth and it works so well. How long did it take to write it?" It's like, to write it? I don't know, a couple of months.
Right.
Total. To research it, it's like a year, depending on the show, at least 6 months of research, to the point where the scenario is so clear and the research is so clear, and we've brought in experts to talk to us, to the point where then I can just start writing. And once I can just start writing, then I can write pretty quickly. And then we change things in rehearsal. We really workshop our shows and rehearse them at the same time. But so there's all these organizations and reporters who very generously either gave us information or pointed us in the right direction to see who to talk to.
Treasure Island!
Treasure Island.
Another poisoned Navy base.
But also, like I say, one thing with this show is people keep coming to us and saying how true the story is. People who live on Treasure Island or have lived there in the past coming up to us and saying, "Thank you so much for telling this story. This is my story." And then also with Lizzie Caligero's character, who is a public servant, a couple of people come up to me after shows and said, "That's exactly what's happening to me. The pressure to follow, to be subject to the money, the pressure to be subject to the land use consultants and the developers." And they're saying, "We're trying to do our jobs, but there's so much money. And the government, the local government, or the board of supervisors, the mayor's office, the city council, whoever, and in any town we play, whether it's San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, up and down, wherever people are dealing with housing issues, which is pretty much everywhere, there are people who come up and say, 'This is exactly our story. Thank you for telling it that way.'"
And I love the set, how you have a sunken ship and a sunken city hall.
Yeah.
There.
That was
side
Bo
by
Golden
side.
who designed that. He
And,
did a great job.
Immediately places the story, and you, Brian, are as most of the characters, part of both boards. So you're a swashbuckler, you're a pirate, and you also are this city hall sort of liaison.
Mr. Silver and I have an understanding.
Mutually beneficial, you could call it.
He lines up the development.
While your boss waives the regulations,
The city signs the contract.
and we share the booty.
But Miss Livesey, what you said, housing for the working people, not just the super rich?
The class war is over. Look at the White House.
There's the literal pirates, scouring the seas, and metaphorically we're pirates scouring the land, just, for resources, for hot real estate, or what we hope to be hot real estate. And so, there's parallels in piracy with that. Also parallels with like the films like The Last Black Man in San Francisco that recently came out, and how the issues of gentrification, and how that film starts off with like in the Bayview, and how and guys in hazmat suits cleaning up an area that people are neighbors, people living in the neighborhood have just watched them do that, and here we are, and that's the same kind of thing happening, in on Treasure Island, where like you'll have one unit where people are living in, and the other one's fenced off and demarked with like radiation symbols, and it's scary.
Yep. Treasure Island is the last frontier, contaminated land, temporarily populated by lower wage earnings population, and now even there being coveted by developers.
Yeah. And it's like San Francisco, it can't grow in a lot of directions. And so the same thing that happened in Hunters Point, like I said, in Treasure Island, this idea of, well, where can we go? How can the city grow? Oh, we can grow onto a radioactive island that liquefies during each earthquake. That makes no sense. But it's a place that the pirates, and like I said, a lot that's in the show is very specifically exactly what's happening. The developers like L.J. Silva that are swooping in because they know that any politician that says, "I'm going to help provide affordable housing," that person will get elected. You know, and it doesn't matter if the affordable housing is on a radioactive island or whatever. And then eventually, the plan from the San Francisco is skyscrapers, huge buildings, again, on an artificial island that liquefies during earthquakes.
Right. Which is an added layer of
Right.
risk for
Right.
the whole population.
But the
of
developers don't care.
Right.
And that's why they're pirates. They swoop into an unsuspecting community, grab all the gold they can, and take off.
And the point is beautifully made. Tomorrow you guys are at Balboa Park. The next day,
Yerba Buena Gardens.
Yerba Buena this Sunday, and those people who can't go further than Dolores Park, that's going to happen Labor Day weekend,
Yeah.
1st of September.
And in between, I mean, we'll be playing Lake Merritt in Oakland this coming week, I think.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just
Down
if
to
you
Palo
go
Alto.
to Palo Alto
you
again,
guys get around.
and then up to Marin.
Yeah,
So,
no excuse for missing the Mime Troop.
right, really, and no,
Come
and
into a park near you.
you can afford the show because it's free, and we will be in your neighborhood.
We can't trust the people who are destroying our world to do the right thing. The only way to get the housing that is your right, our right, and to bring these
Motherfudgers!
to justice, thank you, is for us to stand together against the banks and the buccaneers, the corsairs and criminal politicians. We have to make sure our public servants actually serve us, we, the public, and that they're not just a bunch of
Pirates!
So, yeah, come on out.
And there's one more thing I want to touch on is the 60th anniversary of the troop. So you guys have been defending political views and presenting them in a fun way and musical way for 60 years. What's
Yep.
going on to celebrate and launch you guys for the next 60?
Well, on October 7th, we're going to have an event at the new Presidio Theater, like on the Presidio on the Post. There's this beautiful old theater that's been renovated for the last like 6 years, and it's a wonderful space. And if you have a chance, come on out because it's going to be Mime Troupe members, and we're going to be kind of reminiscing, but also we're going to bring in some older members who have gone on to do film and television and stuff, and have some other guests that are going to come in, and it's going to be a night of really celebrating the last 60 years, and like you said, kind of helping to launch us into the next 60 years. Oh, that's a big thought. But yeah, you know, because not many companies have lasted this long. I mean, certainly not many theater companies and not many for-profit capitalist companies either. So,
Right. And for that, congratulations. You guys finish up a great summer season. And I will be seeing you at the 60th anniversary. Until
Right.
then.